All right, so back to the podcast today. Introduce the topic, Mr. Aaron.
All right, today we're going to talk about the app that we've made, why we've made it, and we're going to talk about it within the context of modern society. So, the first main thing I want to talk about is everyone's living in different realities. Like, people will say, like, this is the best time to be alive, but that's not the case for everyone. Some people are having a pretty bad time of things. And when you say statements such as the 21st century is the best time to be alive, you're ignoring the people who are currently suffering. I think the app helps these people. And I think that for a lot of us, we've got so much potential around us because technology is better than ever and things are things are maybe fairer than ever, although not perfect for everyone. But the fact remains that everyone's living in different subjective realities and some of them aren't good places to be. So,
And the app is called
Unify.
that one. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe I'll link. See, here's the thing, I've just finished version 2 and it doesn't have a link yet, but we'll link to it.
Well, link to it where? Where are we uploading this? Okay.
I have no idea.
I'll be uploading it to YouTube and then linking it to the socials.
But why does the audience care about that? Because they're already watching it.
Yeah. We can make it OnlyFans.
Yeah. I think that modern day problems still have modern day situation has modern day problems. So even though now is the best time to live, we still have a set of problems that still plagues us, and that still brings about, how would I say it? It's a different kind of. It's a different, instead of it being more physiological, it's more psychological these days, and it's harder to find solutions to those problems in the modern world.
Right. This is what I sort of refer to as the meaning problem. And it's like things can be externally just fine, but if you're just miserable on the inside and you don't see a way out, like, it doesn't matter if you have Netflix or it doesn't matter if, like it doesn't matter if you have access to a wide variety of food, which at one point in time would have been amazing. Like if you're miserable because you don't see any point to life, then you're going to have a bad time.
Plus,
I think it's kind of hard to say as well, with like current times because we haven't experienced other times. So it's like it's a bit harder to say that time was harder or that time was easy because I don't know. I don't fucking know anything about it. I mean, I know about it, but I haven't experienced it.
Yeah, the different perspectives of different individuals, because the people in the old times that we're kind of comparing to, that's different from our time to their time. We have an abundance issue where they had a scarcity issue. So it's like they suffered from a lot of physiological diseases that come along from, say, like not eating the right foods or not eating the right amount of food. But where with us, we can just gorge ourselves, and then we get to see the opposite of the spectrum, and that causes a lot of body images because you don't have to worry about going out and seeing what's on the shelves at the supermarket because you know it's going to be there. So you just have to kind of like you just eat, and then you have to suffer the consequences long term rather than short term.
And there's a guilt to it. Like, it's very funny that we have an abundance of food, but we're guilty about eating a lot of it because we know it's bad for us. And it's like it's such a strange position to be in.
Yeah, I think it'd make for an interesting dynamic if every now and then the grocery stores ran out of food. They just didn't have stock. Just like at the end of the day, towards 4 p.m., they were like, "We're empty, sorry," and then that was it for the week. That'd be a good dynamic. Then you'd have to go to the Coles over the other side of the shopping center.
Less to complain about.
Yeah. Well, I do think though there's there's the success of our society where there's an abundance provided to you, but you don't really participate in any of the production of the things you consume. They're just there. And it's easy to get caught up in the idea that as a society, we're very successful, and like we should have gratitude towards that. But if as individuals who are participating in the society, we don't really know exactly what it is we're doing and whether or not it matters. Like I think people sense that.
Yeah, it's like trying to deal with the fact that you have really no responsibility over if you're going to have food or a shelter or anything like that really kind of simplifies life down to a degree. And
Yeah.
then you get to deal with the higher level problems, which don't necessarily have an answer that's objective.
So I think another thing that is somewhat of like a symptom of the kind of problems I'm talking about is for many people, like I've heard a lot of people say this, parties aren't fun anymore. Like it used to be parties were fun, but then now it's just sort of like it's very hard to get people together. It's very hard to keep them kind of like focused while they're there. And then there's a large proportion of people just want to leave early. Um, and like ultimately, it might be that we're just not interested in spending time with one another anymore. But I think there's this subjective reality problem again where some people live in the world of music festivals where it's essentially there's a different thing to go to each weekend, and the things that they go to are full of people that want to be there. And then there's other people who, first of all, have trouble even getting a few friends together to go do something. And then while they're doing it, no one's having any fun. And like this sort of a symptom of this like abundance and scarcity problem is like on an individual level, people are living in very different realities, and it's hard to work out exactly why that is.
Do you think that's changed over the last year and a half?
I'm not sure. A year and a half. See, I haven't really even tried to have fun for the last year and a half.
Yeah. We've kind of just been trying to make it through, I guess.
Yeah.
But then there are other people who have gone out of their way to try and do more external social gathering kind of things, whether that be as like a protest to lockdowns and that kind of thing, or just the fact that it was part of their daily life and now it's not, or it can't be. But I would say, yeah, whether it's raised or lowered, I don't know.
Well, even if, because there's the overall kind of average, and I don't know if it really matters whether or not on average people are having more or less fun to the people that are having no fun at all. Like, you know, to the people who are just isolated, like, you know, it's a miserable sort of like existence at the moment. One big part of life, which maybe used to be looking forward to Friday night to like get you through the week, has kind of disappeared for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And like, I know when I talk to like the younger people at work, they don't seem to be going out like we used to go out. Like when I was like 18, you just went out on Friday. That was what you did. And it wasn't about whether or not you were going to do it. It was how were you going to do it in the way that it would be the most fun. And like we would live the same sort of night many weeks in a row trying to perfect it. And then once it got boring, you know, we'd go somewhere else, we'd see different people. And, you know, it's quite interesting. It doesn't seem like a lot of the young people that I'm talking to are doing that. And I just wonder what the effect of that will be long term if, like, they reach the age 30 and they've never had, I don't know, kind of just like shenanigans, like, you know?
Maybe they'll do shenanigans in their 30s. Maybe that'll be the new 20s.
Let's see, like I think people seem to be spending a lot more time at home and maybe doing more recreational things at home. on Friday nights and stuff like that. But then you're mixing like home environment with like relaxed environment. I know that home is meant to be relaxed, but it's like if you go home and then all of a sudden you've got this computer in front of you or this console or something that demands your attention because it grabs the entertainment part of you. It actually makes you have that little bit of dopamine kick. It's like maybe one of the symptoms of that is like if you're constantly just engaging with that, it's like the external world around you, your environment can kind of sometimes break down, and it seems to be a bit of a byproduct of the times, if you know what I mean. It's like houses are messier because people don't go out and see other people, and then like being in a messy household can sometimes really limit the focus on how you deal with things. And that was
Yep.
one of the things that caught my attention when dealing with the things with Unify, because it's like in times of trouble, you don't want to be swimming uphill through a pile of shit, you know?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Another thing too that I was thinking about, maybe to relate these points together, is like people are spending more time at home looking at a screen. What they're seeing on the screen is like someone else's, like something someone else has produced, usually, like whether or not it's video or it's a game or like whatever it is, it's someone else worked really hard to create that reality, and you're just participating in it. And you're just participating in someone else's reality in a way that doesn't even matter to the external world, like whether or not you did good on the game or bad on the game. You're still going to be in that same messy room that you were trying to kind of like, get out of by going into it. But one of the things is like, if you've got that messy room and you're putting all your attention into the screen and you're not going out and you're not seeing people, it's like you're missing those connections in the external world. But at the same time, you're just at home. And like, if you're living with family or something like that, like if you're yet to move out of home, you're just around all the time. And then that's not good for like family relationships, because like for any relationship to work, there's got to be times when you're not around. Otherwise, what are you going to do? You can't be like a good person to be around all the time. You've just got to give people some space now and again. And I think that's part of the reason why family life in particular is really broke down. So I don't know, discuss.
I think it's interesting. I actually have a bit of input on this because I kind of represent both sides of this issue, where I work from home, and so I'm, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, I'm home. But then when I'm not working, I'm also home. So I'm home 24 hours a day, essentially, unless I like go to the shops or something. I'm just home. And yet still, I will only see Emma for maybe 2 to 3 hours a day, if that, like at best. I don't see her in the morning, and then I might see her at night. And then that's it. And yet I'm spending more time at home than ever, and still not, we just, our paths don't cross because of our schedules, our hours, that kind of thing.
And she's working from home as well?
No, she still goes to work, but she'll get up early enough that like my shifts are later, so I will still be asleep. And then by the time she gets home, I work till 9, and then she'll get home and like do whatever she needs to do while I'm working, and then be in bed by 9 or 10. So we get that tiny overlap of when we're both finished work, and then we don't see each other. So even though I'm home 24 hours a day, we still just don't see each other really.
I think that's a really good way to run that, because there's nothing worse than being around someone for like, say, 10 hours, something like that. And by the time you're in like, hour 9 to 10, you're telling like your 50th least funny joke. And like,
yeah. Well, that was what was happening when I broke my leg, and I was home. Like, it wasn't even like I was home but working in an office. I was like just at home, like on the couch with a fucking leg brace on. And it was like I was just here. I just existed for like, I think it was like 3 months or something. I was just at home all the time, and it sucked. But yeah, it was also towards the middle of the height of the pandemic, so everyone else in the world was doing it as well, just for different reasons. So I think everyone got a bit of that experience, really.
Yeah. Well, it's like the incentives to stay home at the moment is massive. And for
Mm.
me, like personally, like the incentives to keep a clean house are just not there because I don't have people over ever anymore. And like I think that's a thing of the time. Like, and I'm like a clean freak, but I still don't have the incentives that I used to have, if that makes any sense. And that can kind of take a toll on at least my mental health. And usually, um, when that gets to the point of like kind of no return, it's like you kind of have to start from the ground up, especially if like relationships and stuff like that are starting to break down during like hard times. It's like most like I'm guessing some people or most people have probably experienced that during this lockdown because, as you said before, like being around people all the
Mm.
time and then having the messy household and then not having the incentives to clean up because you don't have anyone else outside of the family coming in and stuff like that. It can pile up. And I think that's one of the main things that the app tries to deal with because at the moment it's more worse, like it's worse than ever to try and get motivated to actually deal with the mounting pressures of the complexity of the new world that we're living in.
Yeah, and romantic relationships at the moment, like I think we live in a very sexualized world, but we don't live in a romantic world. And we've kind of got this um a lot of people's romantic life is just like a series of short relationships that are kind of like either they just end up ghosting out or like it just ends in a disaster and it's just on to the next person, on to the next person. And I feel like whereas once upon a time that might have been frowned upon, now it's accepted. And for better or for worse, one thing that I think is a side effect of this is if you're someone who's aiming to have a long-term relationship, but you find yourself around people who are having these short-term relationships that are only ending poorly, if you try to talk about something like, oh, I've got this problem, people will casually say like, oh, just break up, it's not going to work. And like, stuff like that. Like some people are so willing to just be like, what are you doing? No, go be single. Like, it'll be all good. Like, and
But
I think once, there you
I
go.
think that also has to do with if you were to tell someone a story of a relationship and consisted of 100% three bad stories, they
Yeah.
don't have they don't, like, you're not going to tell them, like, when it's going great, And so they're like, oh, this relationship is a rotation of this cycle of three shitty things that are probably different each time. I was thinking about this the other day, actually, because there's the whole relationships advice subreddit, and every time people are just like, break up, he's no good. And it's like, he
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
one bad thing, and it's like, you've been together 5 years. Is that the only thing that's happened in 5 years,
Yeah,
Like, there's no good, there's no other bad, there's no anything else. It's just this vacuum that contains one shitty story, and then everyone's like, dump him immediately,
yeah.
throw him in the trash.
And it's like, is that person going to be a bad person if their life is cleaned up a little bit more? If you know what I mean?
Mm.
It might be that that person in that relationship that is doing the bad things has just been dealt a bad hand for a while, and it's like pulling them down. You know, it's like a
Yeah.
I get
perspective
you.
thing.
I think it depends on the issue, though. Like, when they make comments about, like, he cheated on me with my mum or something, it's like, okay, dump it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they're like, oh, he didn't do the dishes last night, and then this morning he asked me to do them, and then everyone's like, what the fuck, get rid of him, just dump him. And it's like, is that enough to warrant a 5 year relationship going in the bin?
Well, I think one of the problems, I suppose, with the modern world is like because we can, like we can literally start a relationship, break up, and start a new relationship in a month. Like that's like you could do that. That would be like
Op-
logistically possible,
Optimal.
optimal. Yeah.
Nah.
Okay, well,
when it comes to like for my experience of my mental health, it's like if I start to get depressed, I might be a little bit below what I normally am for a month. Like, I can't pull out of like a downward spiral quickly. So what'll happen is like I'll spend the whole month kind of like just becoming like worse and worse to be around until I finally manage to like pull it together. And like in a world where like 3 mistakes is like you're done, move on. Like, it's like I can't navigate that well personally. Like, I'm kind of like I feel like long-term relationships where I store up some goodwill for like the bad times, that's all I can survive in.
Yeah. That was like when I broke my leg and Emma had to financially support me. It was like rough on Emma, but I was like, I'm glad I bought her those flowers last week because that'll balance out for the next 6 months when she has to support me financially. And we ended up, it was even. It was about even. They weren't cheap flowers or anything. They were like $40 or something,
But like, I would be surprised to see if during the pandemic, if relationships actually stood the test of time. If like, because yours did, Andrew, and like that's like a miracle, like he's being able to.
We got
support
together
you.
like 6 months before. Also, Aaron's did too, but we were, yeah. I don't know. I know a lot of people who didn't that have had long-term relationships. Like long-term, I meant. But
Getting personal.
yeah. No, I don't know. It's become a bit of a meme with your relationships, but I'm not gonna like say anything. It's not bad. It's just I don't know. I do know personally multiple people who like split up who have been. It wasn't like a short-term thing. It was like they've been married for like 10 or more years, and that's like a significant enough time for it to not be a coincidence that it was right during the pandemic when everyone was stuck at home and spending more time together. And like even my stepdad and my stepmom and dad, they I think the reason that kind of came in was my dad for the last 10 years has been on business trips like pretty regularly, so they've always had that space. And then the COVID lockdown, he was just working from home, and there was none of that, like no travel for work or anything. It was just from home, and so for like a year straight, they were just in the same house. And I think that maybe I don't know was too much, and they couldn't do it. But that's not the only case of it, It's pretty actually common.
Yeah, I feel like that space element is so important. Like, you can't be like, I don't know. It's hard to be with someone for like, 24 hours, like the entire day, and then to repeat that the next day, like, like you would in a lockdown. And remain like cohesive, you know what I mean? Like to be having experiences where it can go smoothly and it doesn't deteriorate. Like it's like, you just gotta like get some space for yourself. They need some space for them. And maybe when you're off on your own, something interesting happens and then you can bring that story back. And you can tell it. And, that sort of thing is like, it's really sort of beneficial for relationships. Whereas if you try to do every hour of every day together, I see why that puts pressure on people.
See,
is that? Yeah, go ahead, Will.
I was going to say, just to add to that point, is like if you're, instead of going to work, you're in lockdown and then you go into video games and you spend the whole day in the same room, like one watching Netflix, one watching video games, you have really nothing to talk about at the end of the day. And then it's like like you have to ride out dinner. You know what I mean? And you're just like back to the video game.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting way to think about it is if you had like a bar and you could like fill it up and deplete it. And one of the ends is like what you show your partner, and then the other end is like almost like your true self. And when you've got that space apart, it can go up when you like replenish it, but it goes down when you've got like when you're together for too long. And if you get all the way down, you're together for too long, it'll just deplete. You'll show your true self the whole time, And it's not like everyone's like crazy different to what they show their partner, but obviously there would be certain things that would be fucking hell. There would be certain things that would be like you try and get, especially for like shorter term or like earlier in relationships. But even after, 10, 15 years, there might be things that you're still reserved about that you like, I don't know, you might smoke cigarettes or something. And you don't want to show that to your partner. And with that time apart, you can kind of replenish the bar to like have it go from the, top to the middle rather than ever having to deplete. And yet during the time of like COVID, when everyone's together, it might be that some of those bars are depleting. And so partners are seeing their other partners, true self, and they're kind of like, no, I don't like it. I don't like that you smoke cigarettes on the toilet. It's not for me, I don't think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's like try having someone who's got like an addiction like smoking and then take smoking away from them for 3 days when you're in a lockdown. That person is completely different to what they would like normally be considerate over. It's like you dropped a plate. Like they turn into a different being.
Have you ever met someone who said they needed to smoke weed every day? Like they needed to? Because I knew a guy who actively said that to like everyone, but he would also go out of his way to tell everyone that he would get violent if he didn't. And it's like, are you proud of that? Are you wanting that to be the case? Because you tell everyone, and then you go and smoke a cone, So I don't know if this is something you should be doing.
I bet that guy's got a messy room.
A messy life.
Yeah.
All right. So what about this? Just to move on a little bit. Taking the path of immediate gratification is a source of long-term catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make short-term sacrifices for the long-term goals, and if you don't have long-term goals, you don't necessarily have a reason to be here. And that's I know that sounds very harsh, but it's like everyone's kind of got an idea of what a long-term goal could be for them, even if it's abstract as hell. And if they follow just the gratitude path, it's like you can't play that game forever and reach the long-term goals. You've got to make those sacrifices.
I think I am from kind of the generation or the time period. Thanks, Will, for the minutes. I'm from the like time cutover almost, where there was a time, 20 years ago or whatever, when you could almost never get instant gratification from many things. And now it's like, dude, probably shouldn't say this on record, but sometimes I'll be driving and I'll be like, I have a random thought. I'll be like, what was that character's name from that show? And I'll just fucking Google it. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with my brain that I can't wait 5 minutes and, find out later? I'm not like, oh, this is going to annoy me. I need to find out now. And so I'll just stop at a red light and be like, on my phone, fucking Googling this random name. And then I'll see it and be like, oh, cool. And it's like, I could have waited. I didn't need to know that instantly. I didn't need to have that reward in my head instantly, And that's something that's only really become a problem in the last, 15 years because of how easy it's become to get information. And, I'm not saying technology bad or anything, but it's definitely a contributor in this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's having a massive effect. Like, I also think out of all the things to go to like seek the answer to, that's such a shallow sort of like question.
It doesn't matter. It literally makes no difference to my life.
Yeah, like I imagine that if you had to go to like the library to like, go like find the right book on the matter, maybe
it wouldn't annoy me.
Yeah.
No, I'd just not do it. And then my brain wouldn't care because how much I want to know what this answer is well and truly outweighed by how much effort it would take to find out the answer. Whereas if it's going to annoy me this much, but the effort is like, yeah, I'm trying to get the angles right. But yeah, if the effort is so minimal and I can just do it and find out, it's like, why wouldn't I? But it's also like probably because it's illegal and I'm driving, so maybe I shouldn't. But then there's other times where I'm like just at home and I'm like, oh, curious about what that thing was called or what, I don't know, anything. And I can just Google it at any point. But even that's kind of damaging because it just leads me to be like, if I have a question, I can instantly have the answer. And then that naturally leads to me never remembering anything because I don't need to. I can just find the answer out within 30 seconds.
On the note of smartphone use as well, it's like even if you don't know what information you want, you can just look for like hours on end at random stuff and get like figure stuff out and not remember it. That's
Yeah,
But
weird.
you can
that's
also
true.
like you can scroll just like a random like social media feed, whatever one you pick, and you can just have like things that are interesting delivered to you without even having any desire to have known about it initially. And like that has its benefits, but it's also just like this addictive kind of like you sit there receiving information that's not relevant to what's around you. Sometimes it is, but mostly it's just like, this guy shoplifted and then he had a fight with a lady. And be like, you don't need to see that. Like,
Yeah.
like
And then she shot him. You know? Yeah.
Bazinga.
We're not doing that.
Well, I think it's just another thing that contributes to this world of distractions and like complexity. And
Mm.
I'm a victim of it a lot because if I get home from work and I sit down and I go on my phone, that's it. I'm up till 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, and then
Mm.
like the next day is terrible because I've only had 6 hours sleep. Like that's game over. Like and like to break that habit, it's hard. Like it's really hard to break that habit.
Mm. It's just so
It's also,
easy to pick up your phone and it's so easy to do it for hours. And
there's
actually, I
another
would.
thing. Right up. Hang
Okay,
on,
yeah.
Andrew. One more thing.
You might be about to mention it.
When you watch something on a social media feed and you're like with someone else, not only are you ignoring them, which you kind of are. Like sometimes two people can be doing it, but
Mm.
if you show them what you're seeing, it's never really like a charming, nice experience. Like it's like, babe, this bear got in a house. Look, look.
All your videos you see are so weird.
I don't know, but it's like it would be nice to have genuine human connection, and I feel like the phone can be kind of like oh God, kind of like it offers like a bit of support, but it doesn't allow you to break through to the level that actual like meaningful communication is done on. So you can immediately be interesting because you're showing a video of like a bear breaking into a house, and then it's interesting, but it's irrelevant and it doesn't lead to any like long-term happiness. Like, like
Yeah. But like I dated a girl for a while there, and it was literally just like we would swap memes, and then like once that kind of fell through, it's like we didn't even talk. It was like what? It's like was the whole relationship based on just like weird memes that were like on Facebook? Like it's like
Dude,
so
I had a
fake.
friend like that once. We weren't together or anything, but we were talking for a while, and we were literally strictly just friends, and we would just exchange memes all the time. And then I don't know what happened, or if it was a long time coming. Maybe I well and truly missed the signs. But one day she just went, "I think our relationship can be more than just memes," and then just blocked me, and we never spoke again. And I was like, "Oh, was the memes too much? Was it like I don't know, was there more conversation to be had?" But it was just weird to me because I was like, I thought the memes were good. I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with the memes.
like, is there more to this life than memes?
Yeah, it was like it's just jokes and comedy, really. Just enjoy the meme.
Yeah, and I think that accentuates the fact that like a lot of the time with the technology and stuff that we're dealing with, even though it's aimed to kind of try and fill voids in our life and make life better, it's like it can kind of take us away from our own reality, like our own objective reality in a sense. And it's like we're living in these little subjective bubbles. Like for example, Aaron gets videos of bears breaking into houses. I get videos of people picking locks. I'm not a criminal. Um,
I
and
have videos of people breaking into bear caves, so pretty interesting.
that's the link. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that not focusing on your own life can be very taxing if it mounts, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
Yeah. So there's always long-term consequences to every action because what you did or didn't do is just going to ripple out across time. And I can't imagine that having 7 billion people spending like 5 hours a day looking at memes collectively is going to ripple out into a happy future. Like, I hope it does. But
actually, this is something. Would you say, since because you mentioned the other day, you saw the video of someone get shot or something like that. Have you thought about it since? About like their problems and their life and like, I wonder if like, oh, that would have been a fucking huge hospital bill, and then that would have led to, some debt, and then there's the anxiety and the depression from that, and then you've just got this person's problems in your head now.
Hey guys, just a heads up that we talk about quite a graphic Reddit post that was taken down off Reddit, but we wanted to talk about it because it was relevant to the discussion and also shows the importance of how serious real world events are.
yeah, I thought about it. I'll tell you the video, Will, because it was on the front page of Reddit, which is like, what's called the popular tab. So it's not on my feed. I don't follow any subreddits. I just look at the popular tab. But it was on there, and it was a store being robbed in Brazil, where there was a girl at the counter, maybe like 22-ish. The robbers come in. She's quite casual with them. She gives them the money. They're taking it. And then after she's handed over all the money, one of the robbers has pulled the trigger and shot her anyway. But then the next part of the video was the store owners have managed to, I think they caught one of the guys. And in the next part of the video, they beat him to death with like long planks of wood kind of thing, kind of like a 2x4, I guess. And what the video shows is they hit him in the back of the head until it's like, it's through to brain and stuff. Like, like it goes from this guy's fighting back to he's down, to he's being hit, to he's unconscious, to like, you see everything in the back of the head get split open piece by piece as they're hitting it, and they don't stop. And there's people around. There's like a crowd of people, and like, some people are panicked, some people, like, one person's just filming. Like, it's kind of
It's Brazil, though. That might not even be the worst thing they've seen today,
Yeah, well, that's it. And the thing that got me with the video, because I thought about the individuals in the video only a little bit, because I don't know their story, and I don't want to project, like, I don't want to project some assumptions that otherwise might not be true onto the video, because then, I don't know, it sort of sticks with me too much. But I just thought about it in the terms of, like, society, in particular their society, and kind of having like those, it's like robbery and revenge killing are two things you don't want happening. And that video had both of them, but it was on the popular tab of Reddit, and I'm sure it would have violated their terms for like, what makes it to the popular tab. But for whatever reason, the video was yet to be marked as not safe for work. So I was, I caught it before it come down.
See, I get your point about not doing assumptions and stuff like that, but like, from my understanding, there's a woman that's earning money and doing a good job and everything like that. But there's two people in the video that are robbing the store that have enough incentive to rob the store. So it's either they're greedy people or their lives aren't going well. And it's like maybe
this is the second one.
Yeah, and it's like if their lives aren't going well, maybe there's a few things they could have done in the past that could have limited the chances of them getting to that position. And I think that's the thing that upsets me the most is like the human potential there for that interaction to happen. It's really sad that it can get to that, if you know what I mean.
Well, when you get problems like that, they're usually generational in nature. Like it might have been
the fact that they're born in Brazil. It's probably a big thing.
Yeah. Well, I
I don't
mean,
think
there
they
would have
made the
been.
choice to go rob that store and kill her. I think that was a necessity. That they don't have that abundance like we were talking about earlier. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in that store doing that. You know.
Mm.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't let them off the hook because, like, you get a choice as an individual, and
Yeah, but
you,
also I don't know. I don't think they went in there thinking it might like. I don't know. It's an interesting situation, but I think they see it through different eyes than us. Like, obviously, we're like, well, I would have just chosen not to do it. But yeah, of course, you would. But what if your whole family was starving? What if you've got like two kids, and it's pretty normal in Brazil to just go rob a store and maybe die, and that's just
yeah.
what you do.
Here's the thing, though. This is why I think it made it to the popular tab. He chose to shoot the girl after she gave the money,
See
so
that? Yeah.
that's the bit that I think allowed it to tap into something in, like, the collective of Reddit was able to be like, we can unanimously say these are bad people
Because you
because
instantly lose all sympathy once he's done that.
yeah, and then the next part you get to see this guy killed by, like,
Mm.
I
One
mean,
false
I think it was
struggle.
one person doing the hitting, but an entire crowd's there. Like, that guy wasn't getting out of there. Like,
Do we know the store clerk died or was just shot?
judging from the video, she died.
Mm.
It was not a. It's not a good video. Like,
Oh, if it
very.
was like a shoulder shot or something, that kind of thing.
No,
But
no, no,
can we
no,
do
no.
like a
It
Joe
was.
Rogan and pull the video up or something? I'll watch it on air and be like, "Did you see that? It's hilarious."
I'll try and find it.
Oh my
Don't
god.
try to find it. Don't
Okay,
try to
good
find
luck.
it. You
All right,
The
don't need
fucking
it.
FBI would be at your door within 10 minutes for even
Not only,
attempting to
not
search
only,
that kind of thing.
not only that, this video would instantly become R18 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting because things have to be pretty bad where you're like, haha, you gave us the money, bang. Or like,
Yeah, because there's no
Yeah.
reason other than you want to.
yeah, it's like life's given me. Well, I don't even know you can't even fathom what he was thinking.
Mm.
But it's like,
Mm.
ha 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 ha, fucking bang.
Yeah.
In the video, he didn't laugh. It looked more like a. It almost, it looked a bit malevolent. Like, it
maybe,
was, yeah, it's awful.
or maybe he's been hurt. Or like the point that I'm trying to get here is there any point in that person's life where it could have made a difference? And
Yeah.
that's the key idea of the app that we try to make. It's like we're trying to limit these fucking black swan catastrophes or these like 1% chance things to happen. I'm guessing in Brazil it's probably like 45, but you like if he just like a couple of different choices where he had a bit of a better income or a bit of a better education, maybe he could have been better.
Yeah, well, that's it. So when problems stack up for you as an individual, you've got to solve them. But if enough individuals in the society have problems stack up, then the society, like, you can be an individual with no problems in that society, but the societal level, so many problems are stacked up, you can be swept along in the societal currents. And, even though you're fortunate enough to find yourself in a position where you're working and maybe earning some money, you can be killed anyway just because of I don't know, the societal trends just happen to sweep you along into whatever societal level problems are happening. And, the only thing you can do to stop that at the individual level is to solve your individual problems. And then, if you've got a little bit of extra time and energy and expertise, maybe you can help other people. But the first place it begins is solving your own problems.
Setting the example is one of the only ways that you can teach people to be better as well. You've got to have a clean slate before you can kind of promote people to try and acquire a clean slate.
Yeah.
And I'm the only one here without Hextet. Interesting.
Yeah, good fun. But yeah, it's the concept for the app is to kind of tap into the individual to try and stop things like that happening, and also genuinely try and make life a little easier and hold yourself a little bit more accountable for the things that you're avoiding by engaging with social media.
Yeah. So I suppose I'll lay out the way that the app works is that using prompts that the app gives you input problems, and then they're your problems, they're what you decided is a problem, and then it just guides you through a process to help you come up with a solution as well as um, kind of prompt you into thinking thoughts that you otherwise, like you might miss because it's so hard to think of problems. It's so hard to think of solutions and goals and the incentive is to essentially escape into a screen. Um, so one of the things that I really hope that the app does for people, like it's what I find it does for me, but I know that, everyone has different experiences, is it helps put me in my own life in such a way where my emotions are attuned to what's happening around me. And I feel like I'm more present and I feel like I'm participating in whatever my story ultimately will be rather than just kicking back and looking at the phone or playing a game or whatever and participating in someone else's stuff. And that feeling of being in your own life is like a very meaningful feeling. And ultimately, I don't think it matters as much whether or not you're doing really well or really poorly. If you feel like you're in your own life and it's your story and that things are going better, I think that it's a more meaningful existence. And that makes life, really worth living.
It's also the whole holding yourself to a standard is also something that I find very useful because it's like you can have bad days. You can have days when you're not motivated. You can be tired and stuff like that. But when you do have the motivating days, you want to be able to lay the framework so that way when you're a little bit more tired, you can still engage with the world around you, even if it's just that little bit, because that little bit, like doing the dishes or something like that, can make a difference for the day ahead. And that's what I particularly like about the app as well. Is it like it puts you in your own world, and it made me aware of the consistent, like the flow of the days, and like things can cycle through on top of each other, and that's how that's how you end up in a nightmare, you know?
I get you. Not by using the app you end up in a nightmare, but by
Yeah, by neglecting the
by
things.
neglecting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get you. I get you.
May have been worded a little weirdly.
Ultimately, no. You could use the app to create yourself a nightmare if that was your goal. Like, I don't want to make anybody
Don't
think it's
limit
not for
anybody.
them. But as another thing, if you've got less problems, you've got more energy, and when you've got more energy, you've got more control, and when you've got more control, I don't know, it's like you get to actually participate in reality and sort of like you get to put your will out there and you get to see what happens as a result of that. And there's nothing worse than living in the consequences of your actions where you were too tired to give a shit and now you're being punished for it. And it's like that's a pretty crappy story. Like, you're not going to feel good when you're in that. Like I would much rather take a chance on something and have it fail and deal with the failure, but say, hey, it was my thing, like I tried. Turns out I didn't know something, and now I know that, and then you get to try again later. But you don't want to be like, I don't know, everything fell apart because I wasn't paying attention. That's a crappy story. You don't want to live that one. You want to live a better one than that.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Indeed.
Well, as a recap, I think we've covered a lot of ground in the sense of like, in my understanding of the summary, is that the world is complex and there's a lot of things that are grabbing your attention. And it's hard to situate yourself on the things that actually matter, or even you might not see that matter, but actually are making an impact on you. And we have made an app that tries to help you situate yourself in your life and deal with those problems because when you're motivated, you might as well make the best of it. And we hope that it helps. That's my perspective from it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's the end of the podcast. So thank you for tuning in.
Probably a good time to wrap up. Yeah.